wonderful sweet baby. So today we're going to be talking about part 1 of Baddies the Caribbean reunion. It was definitely a lot that was going on, so let's just get straight into it. So the show initially started with the girls in the backstage getting glammed and, just spilling tea about what they expected to happen for the show. One thing that I noticed off the bat was that a lot of the girls looked a mess. The only one that really didn't was Sapphire. And Biggie looked really good in the face, what she was wearing was just atrocious. So Saucy Santana was actually hosting the show with Janisha John. And I can definitely see why a lot of the girls were feeling some type of way about Saucy, but we'll talk about that a little later. So the show pretty much started with Janisha introducing everybody. She introduced Natalie first, and then, I really did peep a little something. After she pretty much introduced Natalie and she, gave her this big, huge thing or whatever, Natalie came over to give Saucy and Janisha a hug, and Janisha kind of was like, There was definitely a lot of tension with Janisha, Scotty, and Natalie. Then she introduces Scotty, and baby, the tension was so real. Scotty then says, "Don't forget with the body." And Janisha just was sitting there silent. She didn't say anything back. She didn't have a rebuttal. Because she probably was thinking Scotty the nobody without Zeus Network and Baddies. So then, Natalie and Scotty was sitting over there being messy, talking about what Scotty had just said. So we're pretty much getting introduced to everybody, and then all of a sudden Mariah comes out. So when Mariah comes out, she instantly gets checked by Saucy Santana. So Saucy Santana had pretty much, gave a little, I'm not really a fan of her type of a gesture when she did come out. So when she did come out, that's when Saucy pressed Jayla about the whole Gretchen situation. So Saucy asked Jayla, so Jayla, you kept getting on Gretchen about saying N-word this, N-word that, N-word this. But Mariah did it as well before on Love and Hip Hop, but you never pressed her about it. So then, to save face, Jayla actually does sit there and tries to, confront Mariah about the whole situation. And I feel like she never really addressed it 100%. She kind of just talked in circles. So once things ended with them talking to Mariah, then here comes Bianca coming out. As you can see, things didn't end too well. But it starts with Sapphire actually pressing Mariah and telling her why she lied about there not being text messages when Sapphire found out that there was text messages of her saying that she didn't know if there was going to be an issue between Sapphire and herself. And then, Sapphire actually pressed Mariah and was like, well, Mariah, why would you think there was going to be an issue between us when we actually squashed all of our beefs last season? And as Sapphire was pressing Mariah, that's when Bianca runs up. So when Bianca ran up, I'm not going to lie, she was getting the best of Mariah Lynn. I don't know why Mariah Lynn acts like she's so blind and like these girls are just all her friends and like nobody's going to touch her. But she's been getting touched a lot lately and it's been pissing me off. So Saucy was, really enjoying it. He was like, do her. So after Mariah had to leave the stage for a little bit because she was getting effed up. Then her and Bianca go round 2 and she got effed up again. So that's when she threatened production as well as the camera crew that, if they don't get the cameras out of her face and that, the security was being, belligerent, not helping her. She actually then threatened to say like, you know what, I'm gonna leave. I won't even come back for another season. Then she just decides that this is her last season. So she sashays off with the black eye. And then not to mention, throughout the entirety of her having her round 2 with Bianca, she was just doing some weird crap. But after that, they end up moving on, and then they start to press Biggie. And Saucy actually mentions how Biggie kept talking crap to Jayla and, that whole situation there. So then, after that, Jayla hops out of her seat acting like, she's going to continue to keep pressing Biggie and that they could run it again. And Biggie was just sitting there like, no, we're not finna do that because, I don't want to run it with you. We've already squashed our beef. It was what it was. I'm not going to stop talking crap with my big ass teddy bear. So get over it, girl. And Bobby's pale ass was in the audience being messy because that's what he was hired to do for the reunion. So then they pretty much let Bobby know that it's Tommy's turn to go out there. So Bobby's pretty much being messy backstage with Tommy, and he's pretty much trying to give her a whole little prep talk, trying to tell her what's going on. Tommy peeped it, and she started to get aggravated with Bobby. So then Tommy actually starts to put the paws on Bobby, and she's pretty much going in on Bobby because she's getting irritated with him. Then, Tommy comes out. Clearly, she's belligerent as all hell, and you can tell that she's clearly not in her right frame of mind. But she comes out acting like she owns the show. And, surprisingly, her and Natalie squash their beef, hug it out, and they're just like they're going to get money together in this upcoming season and for the remainder of their time working with each other. And then things pretty much end with Tinka and Meatball having their round 3. So then after we move on to Meatball coming out, and then they bring out Tinabella. And that's when the gloves started to come off, y'all. So Tinka actually was about that action, and she was ready to come at it with Meatball. I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I was not a Meatball fan this entire season, but this whole section that I'm about to mention to you guys was completely unwarranted. So Tinabella and Meatball, they scrap, they go at it, and they go about 2 to 3 rounds. Before they can even finish the, third round or whatever, Tinka and Meatball, that's when Slim Too Bad comes in, and she's acting like she wants to run it with Meatball, which I don't know why she did that. I don't even know where their issue even comes from. So then after pretty much Slim Too Bad got beat the F up by Meatball, that's when Jayla comes in out of the blue, and she's having an issue with Meatball too, so she wants to square up with Meatball too. So here's my thoughts. I feel like Saucy Santana was the best host that the show has ever had for the reunion. And honestly, you guys know how I feel about Big Back Saucy Santana. I thought he looked a mess, but he definitely is great as a host for the show. The only reason I would say that is because he actually watches the show. So he knew what the beefs were. He had peeped into every episode, so he was able to kind of see how people were moving. He knew what questions to ask. So it's actually best that they had a person that actually watches the show, actually knows what the beefs are, and knows what kind of questions to ask. So Janisha is not the only one asking questions throughout the entirety of the reunion. I feel like, honestly, I wanted to be on Mariah's side, but just the more that things kept coming out, I was just kind of like, you know what? You really deserve that A-whooping. I feel like, Janisha needs to have a little bit more of a backbone when it comes to Scotty, because at the end of the day, Lemmy's your husband, not hers. She's just a homewrecker. To be honest, Jayla is getting on the last point of the everlasting nerve of mine, because she keeps jumping into every beef. She's prolonging beefs, and she's trying to make little ways for her to stay relevant on the show by just mentioning little petty things. It's like she knows she really doesn't have a purpose on the show, so she's trying to do the most so she can stay relevant. And it's very obvious, and it's very annoying. I think that the only reason that Tommy is now back good in with Natalie is because she no longer wants to fight. She just wants it to be smooth so she could come in and collect her check. Although Bobby is extremely messy, I think that it's good that they had him out there in the audience to kind of be shady, to keep the audience as well in the loop of being shady as well. Overall, I can't wait for next week, because that's where the real show is going to be. That's where everybody's really going to come out, and we're going to be able to hear everybody address everything. So yeah, that's where the real show's coming, and I can't wait. But that's my opinion. What's yours?